Totally Football Show. Big Wednesday in the Champions League. PSG, PSV and Arsenal on a Bayern spree in a big week for those. We ask, after Liverpool lose again, will Arne soon get terminated? After 5-3 defeat in Paris, is Thomas the Frank engine now out of the tunnel? And can anything derail this Arsenal? Could it be Chelsea this weekend? We'll be looking forward to that big round in the Premier League with derbies for the Gunners at one end to the Goners at the other as Wolves travel to Villa and all sorts of other delights in between in this Totally Football Show. Thursday the 27th of November. Got a bumper Totally Football Show for you today with Duncan Alexander, of course.
Hello, James.
Think what a lovely shirt you're wearing.
Thank you, James.
Charlie Eccleshare's here.
Hello.
In a more nuanced item. Also Liam Tharme.
Hello, James.
It's Thanksgiving today, isn't it? Isn't it Thanksgiving today?
Thanksgiving, very much so.
What do you want to give thanks for, Liam?
Just everyone here today. You know,
Really?
Sat around the table, isn't it, with the
Damn,
people
you
you
took
love most.
mine. Duncan.
Probably thanks to UEFA for their Swiss format embracing.
And all the raw drama and jeopardy you experienced at the Emirates on Wednesday night. Charlie, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, all the goals that we got last night. 42 in 9 matches.
Yeah. I mean, editorially, it's a great segue, but a little bit superficial in terms of what you're really expressing gratitude
Well,
for.
I mean, I don't know how deep you want me to go, but maybe, could save that for offline.
All right. Let's do this podcast first, though. As you say, 42 goals in 9 matches, which was almost twice as many as there were on Tuesday. Why? I don't know. But the results on Wednesday were, well, in the big game at the Emirates, Arsenal put 3 past FC Bayern, although the Bavarians did get that lovely breakaway goal from teen sensation Lennart Karl. Arsenal 5 wins from 5 now in the competition. The other North London side in action was Spurs, who went to Paris to face PSG, twice took the lead, and ended up losing 5-3. That's much more like it. Meanwhile, at Anfield, Liverpool's nightmare run continued with a 4-1 defeat at home to PSV. That is now 3 matches in a row that Liverpool have lost by 3 goals. PSV, for their part, have now thrashed both the champions of England and the champions of Italy in the space of just a few weeks. Elsewhere, on Wednesday night, there were 7 goals in Piraeus between Olympiacos and Real Madrid. 4 of them from Kylian Mbappe, who responded to Olympiacos taking the lead by scoring the second fastest hat-trick in Champions League history. It took him 6 minutes and 42 seconds. He later added another goal amid a spirited Greek comeback, and the game finished 4-3. Woof. Inter's perfect start came to a halt away to Atletico Madrid, the Nerazzurri losing 2-1 in the 92nd minute to Atleti. It was a feisty affair, that one. Italy's other Nerazzurri, Atalanta, though, had a much better time of it. They went to Eintracht Frankfurt and beat them 3-0. Same scoreline for Sporting in their victory at home to Club Brugge. And lastly, the 2 early games on Wednesday were both pretty lively. Copenhagen, 3-0 up against Kazakh side Almaty at the Parken. With 10 minutes to go, it ended up 3-2. So a little bit of tension at the end. And Cypriot side Paphos had a late goal to grant them another surprise result. They twice came from behind at home to Monaco, once with a David Luiz header, and ended up drawing 2-2. The water park adjacent outfit are currently 24th and in line.
Making a big splash, aren't they?
Hey! Monaco very much on the slide. But yeah, Paphos, with your David Luiz, could be heading for the knockout phases as it stands.
Monaco possibly the only football club who could have a good water slide at their ground, because obviously it's above ground.
Be the only good thing they... Oh, yeah.
By the sea.
Hang on a second. Most grounds are above... most grounds are
No,
above
but
ground.
it's higher than most. It's on a
car
top
park,
of a
isn't it?
car park, yeah. So
And
you
the
could
train
have
station.
You could
Yeah.
zoom
I think.
round.
Right, well, imagine the San Siro if they ran a bit of water from the top of those spirals.
Yeah.
Not what we intended to lead with today. I noticed that Andy Jones has just popped up on the big screen. Good morning, Andy.
Hello. Thank
Hello
you
to
for
you.
having me on to talk about Liverpool.
PSV romped their way to a 4-1 victory. Andy, once again, we must call this a new low. Are there any signs of it stopping?
No. Can we leave it there? Yeah, unfortunately, it's just gone from bad to worse. And when you think, I thought everyone thought Forest at the weekend, the 3-0 defeat there was going to be, the rock bottom, as you say. But then they found a different way and a new way to hit another new low. And the problem is that you're not the shoots of progress that you were hoping for. You're just not really seeing, and when you are seeing, it takes a second, and Liverpool just show a brittleness, and any setback they seem to encounter at the moment is that they fail to overcome, and that's been the main problem.
9 defeats in the last 12 games. You have to go back to the 1950s to find a similarly bad run from Liverpool. They're in the and it needs to change, as Curtis Jones explained post-game. But what realistically can be done at the moment? We've got West Ham coming up, or Liverpool have West Ham coming up at the weekend. What realistically can be done to start to turn things around?
It's a great question, and evidently it's puzzling everybody inside Liverpool, as well as the fans, because it doesn't seem like an obvious thing to fix, because there are so many issues that Liverpool have got at the moment. And I think, for me, it's becoming a lot more of a mentality than a tactical problem. You can pick holes in Liverpool's tactical game still. But for example, they were great for 30 minutes against Forest, and then at the first sign of adversity, they concede a really stupid corner, and then it concede another set piece, and then it's almost like the game's over. And against PSV again, they concede a really ridiculous penalty, but then dominate the first half. Probably should lead going into half time. You think, right, that this has been much better. Liverpool should go on and win this now, and then come out and with a whimper in the second half, and it just gets worse and worse. So I think that's the problem. It's how do you turn Liverpool's mentality around at the moment, because they look beaten, they look defeated. Before they've even stepped out on the pitch, opposition smell blood. I keep coming back to Forest's second goal. It's the left back on the byline passing it back to the right back on the pen spot. That shouldn't happen. No opposition team comes to Anfield and does that. But 19th place Forest at the time felt confident enough. To start the second half, there was no retreat. There was let's take these on, and teams are smelling blood. And Liverpool at the moment seem powerless to stop it. They've not got loads of squad options at the moment that they can really use. They've got a couple of injuries in bad areas. So at right back, for example, they're having to play a midfielder there, which is imbalancing things. The centre back issue, Konate's form continues to get worse, if you like, or seem, he seems to be at the scene of a crime in every single game, but you can't really take him out because of Joe Gomez's fitness isn't quite there, and Leone was injured, and you look at the summer and how excited everyone was with the signings that they made, but it doesn't feel like they fully built the squad in the way they needed to, because a winger is another sort of issue, in that neither Salah or Gakpo are performing or producing, but there's no one really to come on for them. Other than a 17-year-old, and you shouldn't be putting the amount of pressure that is required on who's coming on at the moment for Liverpool, on someone like that.
Do you think Arne Slot will make big changes to the team for the trip to West Ham at the weekend?
I don't think so, mainly because he's not really got that many options to make. We'll wait to find out Hugo Ekitike's injury and hit situation. You feel like Isaac may come back in, but outside of that, the right backs are still going to both be missing. Probably the biggest change he can make is if he does finally sort of pull the trigger at centre half, I guess, and bring Joe Gomez in for Konate. He might change the left back. But outside of that, Liverpool's squad players, you've got sort of like Wataru Endo and players like that, and Federico Chiesa, who he's shown no sort of intent to start league games, even when it was all going well last season. So it's difficult to see how he turns to them, but. So that's almost the problem. There's not many options. We'll wait to see on Florian Wirtz's fitness to see where he is, and if he might come back into contention for Sunday, and that might be something that he can do with changing the system, or just bringing Wirtz back in. But that's almost the problem at the moment. That it's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, even though it's not working. But the problem is that Slot doesn't have many options to change, and what he has tried to change, obviously up to this point during this run, hasn't worked, because the results have continued in the same way of getting worse almost.
There do seem to be some parallels with the slump that Man City went through last season. Around the same time, they were reigning champions. It was kind of precipitated by a disastrous result against the Dutch side in the Champions League as well. That was kind of, I guess, focused around Rodri's absence. And eventually it all came right. Is the feeling kind of behind the scenes at Liverpool that this too will eventually right itself? Or are they thinking that they need another round of investment in January? Or are they thinking of a change on the bench?
It's difficult to know. I think generally the support is still there for Slot, that he can be the man to fix things and sort out the situation. But, with every passing game and there is the last two particularly results have really changed the feel and the mood music, I think, around supporters. There's been a lot of changing of minds, I think, because even up during the international break, there was still a feeling that he would be able to turn this round and it would be a matter of time before things got, clicked and things like that. But, the manner of the two performances, to lose 3-0 and 4-1 at Anfield is unforgivable, really. It's borderline unforgivable as a Liverpool manager. It feels like they need to invest again, which feels ridiculous given the amount of money they spent. But they did sell a lot of players as well. And some of them they've not really replaced, and yeah, it's how do you fix a mentality issue? Because at the moment Liverpool just feels second best. The opposition looks sharper, hungrier, quicker, just more up for the fight. And Liverpool, as I said earlier, whenever they sort of encountered any sort of adversity, they just seem to wilt. And even last, against PSV, they do get back in the game. But then it just feels like the next setback's around the corner, and ultimately that then hits them, and they can't recover from that.
They're a decent side. They recently beat Napoli 6-2, so they are a dangerous outfit. What did you make of their performance? Do they deserve as much credit as Liverpool deserve criticism?
Yeah, they definitely deserve credit. I think it was interesting. They got the early goal, and then Liverpool did dominate that first half, but then the second half, you just saw, it felt like they changed a few things. I think Slot sort of explained Liverpool's press fell off a cliff sort of in the second half because of Ekitike's injury. You got to see the technical quality of PSV and the way they were able to move the ball. They've got a lot of really exciting players, and they sort of had threats from a lot of different areas. And there were times where they could have scored, a couple more goals because they were real danger on the counter-attack. And, they had that nice blend of technicians with pace as well, and the ability to press the ball. So, yeah, it was really, really impressive. And that's the thing, you don't want to sort of take anything away from them because they've rocked up at Anfield and won 4-1 and sort of deserve to win the game. So, yeah, they're a side that Liverpool should generally be beaten. But, at the moment, Liverpool are just in a bad place, and PSV took advantage of that and well deserved the victory and looked really good in doing it.
Andy, thank you so much for joining us, and catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, speak to you soon.
Liverpool, ahead of the trip to West Ham in the Champions League, are currently just 3 points above Union Saint-Gilloise, who are 25th in the table and thus represent the bottom barrier of the teams that will make the knockouts. Liverpool's final 3 games will see them travel to Milan to take on Inter, last season's runners-up, and then also on the road to a resurgent Marseille, the side who beat Newcastle on Tuesday. The final match is at home to Karabakh, which ordinarily you'd say, but right now,
Yeah, I mean, obviously the West Ham game as well looms. And if fans of remembering stuff might remember that last autumn, Eric Ten Hag's final game as Manchester United boss was away at West Ham.
Ooh.
And obviously Nuno's got a particularly good record against Arne Slot.
So he has.
I'm not saying anything, history doesn't repeat itself always, but there's definitely
But it rhymes.
It does rhyme, yeah.
Could I just, a word, as they say in the industry, for Ivan Perisic? The guy is an absolute marvel. I mean, firstly, anyone who can take set pieces with both feet, you're all right by me. Incredible. And genuinely, I think he could have scored that penalty with either. He went with his right, put it away beautifully. He's 36. He suffered an ACL a couple of years ago. And you'd think at that age, well, I mean, that could almost be, that could be the end of him. And he went back to Croatia, sort of from Spurs, recovered quite quickly from the ACL. Happened in September. He's back playing in April, and he's just back playing top-level football again. He's incredible. It feels like he's been doing it forever.
Ivan Perisic.
And one last thing, a weirdly Cat Stevens coded frontline for PSV.
Because?
Till and Mann.
Very good.
That's so good, isn't it? Freshly returned Martinelli, making it a whopping 3-1 for Arsenal against a Bayern team that had not lost a single game all this season. Duncan and Charlie, you were both there. Liam, you were writing about this. Extraordinary for Arsenal, first of all. 6 points clear in the Premier League, of course, and 5 for 5 now in the Champions League. Players coming back from injury. Pretty perfect night.
I was intrigued by Declan Rice's comments afterwards. He was saying how hard Bayern are to play against, specifically for the way they like to rotate a lot and kind of their build-up, that it's kind of then really hard for Arsenal to go man for man in the press. They had to be quite zonal and really patient. And I thought first half, they really sat back, first 10, 15 minutes especially, and kind of, I thought, showed a real different side to their game, the kind of side that you need in Europe sometimes, where you can sit deep, absorb pressure. I thought they were then pretty good on transition. They were pretty good when they kind of kicked along with Raya and kind of played off second balls. And even kind of the corner they get for the opening goal comes about really from a second ball in midfield, and Zubimendi just, really, really harrowing. I think it's Conrad Lima, and ended up forcing a set piece. So there was, we had a lot of chat often about kind of Arsenal and their creativity and open play stuff, but I just thought defensively they showed kind of all those sides, from sitting deep all the way up to kind of pressing man for man, and Mosquera and Saliba going, so tight with Kane and Carl.
Duncan, give us a stat about Arsenal and open play goals.
High scoring Premier League team from open play in November, which confounds some people's narratives.
Are they becoming too reliant on open play goals?
It's a worry.
You do wonder.
And that's because of Eberechi Eze.
Yeah, who, to Liam's point, was fairly quiet in the first half as the game. It was I think it's rare you go to a football game where, as Charlie was saying before we came on there was not that much at stake in some senses, because, Bayern are fine even though they lost the match. But I've rarely been at a football game where people settled in to watch sort of a tactical battle more than this. Everyone, first off, Bayern had a lot of the ball, and a lot of the Arsenal fans were sort of, this is quite interesting. It's quite, what's going on? And it was really kind of fascinating. But then the second half, to Liam's point again, I think obviously Arteta imparted some information at half time, and Arsenal came out and...
What did he impart?
Well, I think, what Bayern were doing, the way to counter it, and that second half performance from Arsenal was outstanding, particularly Declan Rice, who, that was, for people who can remember, that was a sort of Roy Keane in the 90s sort of performance.
It's weird, these Champions League group games are sort of like deluxe Carabao, where it's like, they're low stakes in some way. The pressure's off. The leagues are every league game is so suffocating, the pressure. Whereas you have the midweek, and it's kind of like, this should be fun. Like I didn't really sense any stress or anxiety going into this game. Whereas obviously you just had the North London derby where everyone's really uptight going in, and there's Chelsea away, and has this like seismic feel. Right. This felt like, it was like, obviously you really want to win it because it's Bayern, but there were no, if they lost, it didn't really matter.
Right, because Arsenal won
because
the first 4 games.
Exactly, so that both teams are in the strong position. But I thought the second half performance was especially impressive because for the first 15 minutes, Arsenal absolutely went for Bayern, first 15 minutes of the second half. And it was as if they were just sort of pummeling them, but Bayern somehow managed to stay up. And often once a team weathers that kind of storm, you think, sort of what have they got left? But they actually then just went again and got those 2 goals. And as has been the narrative this season, it's the squad. They were able to, Martinelli and Madueke had to come on early because Trossard got injured, but 2 subs scoring, which was the case in their first Champions League game away at Athletic Club. And Calafiori had just come off the bench, put in a beautiful assist. They kind of battered them. Yeah. The XG was 3.1 to 0.65 in Arsenal's favour. Right. It was dominant. Actually in XG terms, more dominant than the 4-1 against Spurs. Or at least Arsenal, had a much higher XG than they had in that game. They really looked superior in that second half.
You mentioned the opening goal during Timber there, and Bayern conceding again from a set piece. We should also talk about their equaliser, the phenomenal, what was it, 2 touches and then...
That was the one pass I think Bayern had kind of on repeat that looked like it could keep threatening, and was probably more the reason I think Calafiori came on was to probably provide a bit more physicality up against Elise, not intentionally to come on and say, go on and set up the goal. It was a really good move, I think.
Kimmich pings it up to Gnabry, who first times it across to...
Yeah, because it was the one... It was the one point of the game where they switched.
They switched over, and then Carl crashed in the box. So, it was a really good move. I think that's the danger when you do sit off with someone like Kimmich, and with this passing range and his quality, that you then say, well, okay, we're going to have to defend whatever he can kind of produce. But I think mostly they kept Kimmich fairly quiet and wasn't always able to do that.
Harry Kane was dropping deep as well, but mainly to chat to the ref, it seems.
It's the first time he's ever played 90 minutes against Arsenal and not had a shot.
Yeah.
It felt like he barely had a touch because
there was
the
a
moment...
touch till 10 minutes. I looked at the clock. His first touch was after 10 minutes.
Most of his touches seem to be in Bayern's own box, actually.
But there was a moment because he got the ball about half an hour in. He had his first proper touch of the ball because there was enough time for him to get booed. Yeah. And I don't think he got booed before or after. Genuinely, I don't remember there being a moment where he had the ball long enough for that to happen.
Smattering in the second half. But yeah, you're right. He barely influenced the game at all. And then one player for Bayern who did.
Manuel Neuer.
Yeah. And I've got a particular
What
love
happened on that? So first of all, on the corner, what happens there?
So Timber, I think, runs across him, or he gets a couple of runners across him from the back post that kind of just knock him off of his stride. And he just seems to then panic and go, "Well, I've got to come for it now," and kind of deal with the ball in. And he comes out kind of half trying to punch it, half trying to catch it, and Timber gets the flick on. Which, I mean, for not a hugely tall guy, he's got a great jump on him, Timber. I remember
they've got a few giants in that
They
team.
do,
It's pretty
yeah.
impressive. Or
I mean, the
bad
ball in
defending. The ball's
great as well.
It's amazing, but for him to find that space just in front of the keeper with the size
It was
of
very
that
much welcome to our league, wasn't it? Like, yeah, you pack your 6-yard box, well, watch out. But yeah, I mean, I love Manuel Neuer and also slightly pitch him in the same respect, in the same breath, because he did invent modern goalkeeping, essentially. Like, what we now think of as what goalkeepers do was in a lot of ways down to him. But he's like one of those bands that's like still doing the tours but can't quite get the high notes or because there were a lot of moments in that game where his kicking was a bit weak. Like, he can't really reach the halfway line as much as he would like to. And then obviously for Arsenal's third goal, if you did a career heat map of touches outside the box, Manuel Neuer, there's that one of the World Cup we got robbed in the opposition half, but he got absolutely done, and like he floundered. He tried to bring down Martinelli, and it was never going to happen. But
the amazing thing about him, just like the chutzpah on the guy, even after that, he then did a no-look throw, and it was like, you've just conceded that goal to Martinelli. Like, you've kind of made an idiot out of yourself. I'd maybe keep a low profile. And he's still just doing mad
You
stuff.
can't be Manuel Neuer if you don't do that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You have
I
to
love
have
it.
that.
It's
he believes
amazing.
in his craft more than anyone I've ever seen. Now, that craft is slowly fading, but it was lovely to see. And I think we got the full Manuel Neuer experience.
Yeah, he was still roving up around the halfway line, even after that third
absolutely.
goal. Remarkable. Arsenal then, as I say, 5 wins out of 5 in the Champions League, 6 points clear in the Premier League. Chelsea at the weekend. What a game that sets up as. One's just beaten FC Bayern, the other one's just put 3 goals past Barcelona.
So 0-0.
So well set up, that.
We should see. Oh, by the way, the Gunners under 19s also beat Bayern on Wednesday, their equivalent youth outfit. A 4-2 victory for Arsenal's juniors in the UEFA Youth League. It featured a frankly ridiculous goal from 15-year-old Max Daumann,
The veteran
the veteran. Have you seen that goal? Yeah, a delicious
does a
little,
sort of pirouette and then dinks over the keeper. I mean, he's played in the Champions League. Come on, it's
It's everything you want from a youth team player. Like, it's when you hear like youth team player scores amazing goal, it's got that sort of mad skill and then audacious finish.
And Arsenal's lineup also featured the youngest player to ever appear in the UEFA Youth League, Luis Munoz possibly, who's aged 13. Oh my goodness.
December 2011 he was born, so for fans of rapidly ageing, so there you go.
Glenn Hoddle with his very own Steve McLaren on Sky Sports moment, celebrating Spurs' defensive pragmatism just ahead of Vitinha's extraordinary equaliser in what turned out to be a 5-3 PSG win over Spurs Wednesday night. Jay Harris was there and he joins us now literally from the Gare du Nord. Hey Jay, they wanted entertainment.
Yeah, exactly that. I'm not too sure, conceding 5 goals was exactly what they wanted. But I think Spurs fans came away at least pleased that Frank abandoned the 5-4-1 system, which everybody criticised after the North London derby. And I actually think his personnel selection was really crucial as well. Started Archie Gray, Lucas Bergwijn and Pape Sarr together in midfield for the first time since the opening day of the season when they beat Burnley. And I think that youthful midfield, the vigour, the energy it brings, the technical quality it brings, was something that fans have been crying out for all season. There's this quite divisive partnership of Bentancur and João Palhinha that Tottenham fans are getting really irritated with. So I think Frank was instantly onto a winner for the fact that he broke that partnership up. And Spurs were pretty decent for the first 45 minutes. And then I still don't really know what happened in the second half, but it just felt like they just completely collapsed and Romero probably had his worst game of the season.
Frank also played 2 up top with Colin Moani and Richarlison, both of whom scored.
Yeah, this was actually a massive game for Colin Moani, coming up against his parent club who ditched him after 18 months. He hadn't scored in his first 9 appearances for Spurs. So to get 2 goals in this game, especially the second one I thought he took really well, was key. He assisted Richarlison's goal. So again, I think the big lesson that Thomas Frank should take from this is Yes, when we come up against Man City, PSG, Arsenal, maybe previously he's gone too defensive. I think this has shown that actually there's nothing wrong with having a go at them. You can have success. I mean, they did record a higher XG than PSG, but just when you've got someone like Vitinha, just slightly unbalances those types of things.
First hat-trick of his career, that was, which is funny because at the weekend, Eberechi Eze got his first hat-trick of his career, and they were both against Spurs.
When was the last time Spurs conceded hat-tricks in back-to-back games? Surely it's quite a rare event.
It can happen. You can lose 5-3 to the European champions, but by and large, this was a performance to draw many positives from for Spurs fans.
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned, Vitinha, those goals he scored were simply sensational, and Thomas Frank said afterwards, PSG already have one Ballon d'Or winner and they've probably got the next one playing in midfield. When someone, especially that first strike, produces something like that, it's frustrating, but it's how football works sometimes. But I think Spurs, the youthful vigour, I mean, Lucas Bergvall was excellent. His first performance since he suffered concussion a couple of weeks ago, just before the international break. I think this was only Archie Gray's full start of the season. They're both 19 years old. Spoke to Gray after the game, actually, and he played for Spurs mainly in defence last season, but he prefers to play in midfield. And he actually did say that, you know, he got a lot of experience from last season, but playing in midfield, you know, he's happy that he's doing that now. And I just think that is sort of the foundation that Frank needs to use going forward. But having said all that, well done. You've gone away to the European champions. You've lost with dignity. But the biggest test for this is his approach against Fulham on Saturday. I did a quick poll on Twitter before the game, said, you know, which win was more important or which game was more important, PSG or Fulham? 90% of people said it was Fulham. So well done against PSG. Some positives to take, but you now have to take this proactive approach against Fulham and get a victory at home. I think it'd be only their fourth victory in their last 21 games as they win on Saturday. That's where it all comes down to. Otherwise, the pressure's going to be right back on Frank.
Jay, have a great trip home and we'll speak to you soon.
Au revoir. Merci.
Jay Harris in Paris. Very good. The other games, run through the results already. I mean, Real Madrid was bonkers. We talked yesterday about the reports of unrest at Real Madrid, ill feeling between Vinny Jr. and apparently a coterie of other big names, but everybody a lot happier, one imagines, after they survived their initial scare away in Paris and came away with a 4-3 win. Kylian Mbappe with all 4 goals for Real Madrid. Vitinha and he combining brilliantly. He's now on 22 goals in 18 matches, which is pretty good. Pretty good.
No Haaland, but it's decent, yeah.
It's Premier League, match day 13, everyone. 5 games on Saturday and 5 on Sunday, Liam.
Perfectly balanced.
Saturday, things kick off with 3 games at 3. Brentford, Burnley, Sunderland, Bournemouth, and Manchester City against Leeds. At 5:30, Everton will be hosting Newcastle at the Hill Dickinson. And then at 8 p.m, Spurs are up against Fulham in that key test of Thomas Frank's new freewheeling philosophy. Sunday, the big match is Chelsea-Arsenal at 4:30. But before that, you've got Crystal Palace against Man United at 12. That sounds like fun. And 3 games at the unusual time of 5 minutes past 2. Not sure why this is.
I think it's because to accommodate the 12 o'clock, there being a 12 o'clock game.
Right.
You'd imagine. Just move it a little bit later so there's no risk of overlap.
Why don't they move the one game at 12 to 11:55 and leave the 2 o'clock?
Not enough rest.
Yeah, not enough rest from Strasbourg away. I'm not surprised they're playing that midday slot, Palace.
Yeah.
Given they're away in Europe and an 8 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah, it does seem like I think, well, we have seen teams, including Manchester United, demand to play on Sunday night at sort of 7:30. So
Those 3 games at 5 past 2 are West Ham, Liverpool, Aston Villa, Wolves. Anyone want to whistle for that one? It's a derby. And Forest, Brighton. Arsenal are 6 points clear of their hosts on Saturday. Chelsea, City lie third, 7 points off the lead. And then you've got 9 teams from Villa, who are now in 4th, down to Liverpool in 12th. Those 9 teams separated by just 3 points.
Our league.
At the other end, still only the 2 points for Wolves. Burnley are on 10 and Leeds on 11. They're now in the bottom 3, along with the side from Molineux.
I think it's also much nicer that it's Chelsea v Arsenal and not the other way around. I think Chelsea would be a good test, good team at home. And I think, I mean, Arteta spoke about it, almost a bit of a cliche, but kind of the thing of kind of having those big games in succession that actually can almost be harder to then pick yourselves up and go again for the game 3-4 days later when you've expended so much. I think one good thing from this midweek was it didn't feel like they kind of had a big kind of like emotional outpouring in the game, like it was giving everything. As the guys have said, it was a good kind of show of the squad depth as well. So providing that kind of the injuries aren't too severe, I think that they're in a really good spot for a game like this.
The main injury worry now is Trossard, who went off yesterday and has been in such good form. I wanted to ask you, Liam, actually, as a Brighton fan, did you foresee that he would get to this level? Because it feels like he's gone from a really good sort of squad player for Arsenal to this season just like going up another few levels.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe quite this high, but kind of similar to what you were saying about Ivan Perisic being a little bit of kind of a maverick or a slightly unicorn player. I think said similar about Trossard.
Two-footed,
yeah, very two-footed. I think he's got a really good eye for a pass, really creative. He's quite a small player, always quite diminutive, and I think he clearly never was kind of physically superior to younger players when he was growing up. So clearly just learned to be technically good because of that. I mean, there was a period where Graham Potter, probably his best Brighton team, he had Trossard playing wing back in a back three / back five. So he's always been really versatile. Played through the middle at times to Brighton as well.
Can referee.
Yes, yeah. I just a nice bloke as well. Big fan of Lego. I think so.
Is he?
Yeah, likes playing Lego, which is
He's a missing
Would you
piece
play
for
Lego?
Arsenal, that's for sure. He's also...
Brian were wrong to let go of him.
I don't think they have much choice. But he was also very early kind of XG man. Like when XG first emerged into the world in the early 2010s, he was at Genk. And I remember there were a lot of... When I was worked for Option, there were lots of like, there's this guy at Genk called Leandro Trossard. He's like overperforming his XG when no one really knew what that meant. But he clearly has always had a lot of talent. And I think this season, I think it was after the Burnley when he kind of led the kind of huddle, I think. And I think he's really stepped up in sort of responsibilities this season, which is it's slightly annoying. For Arsenal that he's out injured now.
Yeah. How long for?
We don't know. I mean, Arteta just said he felt something went off. I have to say, actually, I did. There were a few times before that, earlier on in the game, where I did think he wasn't moving quite right. I'm slightly surprised he didn't go off sooner with this Chelsea game in mind.
So many players coming back, though. Martinelli, we mentioned Madueke, Odegaard coming back in as well.
And, they've still got Gyökeres and Havertz and Jesus. They've got 3 strikers to come back. But I think that would be a big loss because I think Trossard as well has really helped the sort of Mikel Merino thing. For that to work, every other piece needs to kind of be perfect around it. And Trossard's so intelligent. He's really helped with that. But no, I think this game is so well set up. I mean, like you said, Jimbo, both of them beating European giants midweek. Chelsea, who, actually going, in about mid-December last year, they were second, or at least right with Arsenal in second. And there was the same kind of questions. Can they have, can they really be contenders? This feels well set up for them to demonstrate whether they can actually challenge Arsenal this season or whether it's going to be another season where they're sort of knocking around looking for a top 4 spot.
Man City looking to pick up some scraps. Perhaps they've got the easier looking fixture at home to Leeds, who've lost their last 3 games, 5 of their last 6, in fact. Although they are coming off that defeat to Newcastle. Erling Haaland, of course, born in Leeds, so this will be a special game for him, as indeed it will be if he manages to get a goal, because that'll put him on 100 Premier League goals.
He will beat Alan Shearer to 100 goals in terms of speed.
Wow.
Obviously, City should be fresh as well after they rotated their entire team for the challenge of Bayer Leverkusen.
Yeah, back-to-back defeats, of course, for Pep's side. Sunday at 2 is the next chapter in Liverpool's dramatic campaign, the aforementioned trip to West Ham. The Hammers have won just one of their last 19 meetings with Liverpool in all competitions, but this does seem like a good opportunity for them to get a second one. Nuno with a good record against Liverpool. He's also picked up 7 points from the last 9 available with the Hammers. Back-to-back home wins. So
it's terrible timing for Liverpool that West Ham have been fairly abject for a lot of the season. Had a managerial change and have actually now kind of found some form, found a settled team, and found a good kind of base level of playing. I think if you're Liverpool, you're almost hoping for a team that you can completely put away, just a real kind of confidence booster.
Does that team exist for Liverpool right now? I mean, I kind of feel that they're in one of those periods.
play at Molineux.
Well, tricky place to go, when you're not winning games. I would just say on Liverpool, it is quite interesting. I mean, their last 3 games in which they've scored 1 and conceded 10, think they've got a higher XG than their opponents in those 3 games combined. And it's kind of a revert. And if anyone is kind of interested or skeptical of XG, I mean, Liverpool are a really good illustration because earlier this season, they won their first 5 league games. But there was something very unconvincing about them.
Me and you spoke about it quite a lot.
Every week we were saying, but the numbers were backing that up. Like their underlying numbers were really bad. And what, the idea is that...
But now the numbers aren't backing it up because the underlying numbers are really good.
But they're not really... There's it's variance. If you're not going to keep winning every game if you're not creating as many chances as your opponents. Ditto, they're not going to keep losing these games. These are overall...
So you're saying don't panic because the signs are there that they are getting into positions where they could...
Yeah, well, I'd say they were nowhere near as good as they were early on. They're not quite as bad as the results are now.
Okay.
Overall, the results are probably fair. It's just weird. It's come in these 2 clusters of amazing results and terrible ones. But yes, I think they will start, if they keep doing this, they will start winning
But that's
games.
when you have to factor in like confidence and general vibes and kind of system. Like that's when if there are faults, a run of successive defeats will start to widen those cracks.
So true.
I think. Sorry, just don't want to labour the Eric Ten Hag point from earlier, but like there is something quite. I think as a struggling manager, the London Stadium is like maybe the worst ground to go to.
Is it because of how big the technical area is that you can
and
look
it just
very
there's
out on
something
your own?
quite like bleak about it. I think West Ham fans would probably agree with that as well. So
I mean, we should say it's quite different, the circumstance Ten Hag. I mean, Ten Hag, I think, was on borrowed time by the time he went.
You're pining for that, Duncan.
Slot, he had that amazing first season, so I think has earned the right to a bit of grace in a way that I think Ten Hag was kind of the opposite. I think he was lucky to still be there by that point.
At 2:05, that game, as is, Aston Villa, now in 4th place against Wolves. Extraordinary. Villa were 18th in the table 7 games ago. They're now 4th.
Well, to Charlie's point, Villa are the kind of XG overperformers.
Are they?
Their numbers aren't great, but they are picking off wins with long range goals and a few fortunate results here and there. So again, like we said, they're 4th. I don't think they're the 4th best team in the Premier League.
What about Wolves? What are their underlying numbers?
Wolves' underlying numbers are actually all right. They are no way an 8 points adrift of everyone else team. Wolves.
And yet,
I still. We know for a fact they're going to get more than 11 points. That's
Duncan knows that for a fact. Everybody else, I suspect, is more open to...
By March the 1st, they'll have over 11 points.
Okay.
But their problem is that, there's a lot of teams...
They're going to have more than 11 points.
And I think it may be too much for handsome Rob Edwards to turn around. But I think they're not as bad as people are saying they are. I mean, remember they nearly won at Spurs. They let in a last-minute equaliser there.
Yeah.
They've had other games, so they have been unlucky.
It is hard to see that bottom 3 changing.
Well,
I know. I mean, obviously we're 12 games in, but there just aren't. Yeah, I mean, like because West Ham and Forest now seem to have kind of sorted themselves out a bit, and I don't see any of
Fulham. Maybe
Fulham just seem to win a game frequently enough to stay just adrift. And I mean, they've done okay for a team that's not had a huge amount of recruitment and backing there. But I think it's...
Fulham is that.
Yes, Fulham. I think it's fairly cut away from probably Newcastle. I mean, if Newcastle can learn to not be abject away from home at least a few times a season, they'll obviously be perfectly fine.
I mean, Brentford could get dragged. I mean, I'd say they've sort of overperformed. Maybe, just like... I think they've been really, really good. Maybe they get dragged into it.
I mean, the one that leaps up to me of being dragged in, and I don't like saying it because I don't want the 3 promoted teams to go down again, but is Sunderland.
There's no way. They're on 19 points already. They need theoretically
let me introduce you to a little team called Blackpool FC, my friend.
Okay, sure.
Who began similarly and Hull around that time as well. Didn't go down.
What do you see in Sunderland to indicate they will be that is my question. I don't doubt there's exceptions to the rule.
Them underlying numbers.
Blackpool, the season that Munoz was born, of course.
Yeah.
The Arsenal youngster.
Yeah, exactly. It was his first memory.
No, what? He would have been born late because he was December, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So he was 6 months after.
He's been told Blackpool playing the Premier League and he just simply doesn't believe that. Like Preston North End won the league as well. What is this? Anyway,
but Liam's question, I think, is a valid one. What do you see in Sunderland?
Their attacking numbers are pretty underwhelming.
Right.
They've got a goalkeeper who's basically performing better than any other goalkeeper in the league and has kept them in games, particularly like Palace game and
Robin
number of
Roofs,
Robin
more
Roofs.
like Robin Points.
Well, yeah. Will the roof cave in?
Yeah,
You
nice.
wonder. I don't think they'll go down, but
Right.
I do feel that they might finish 17th.
Burnley in the bottom three are away at Brentford, who I don't think most people are too worried about, but we shall see. Burnley, by the way, have the lowest XG, the fewest shots, and their goalkeeper Martin Dubravka has made the most saves in all the Premier League this season. So to your point about Wolves, there is a team that's performing even worse than them.
I'm calling it now. Wolves are staying up.
All right. Wow. So many interesting looking fixtures apart from those ones. Palace against Man United looks like a tasty one. Palace, who haven't actually conceded a goal in their last 4 meetings with United, but coming off that trip to face Liam Rosenior's Strasbourg Thursday night. What do you think on that one?
It's probably, again, another real test for, I think, Amram, because it's the kind of game that United tend to struggle in, where they have to dominate. It's ironically the reverse thing that Palace have had, where they've now gone to the Conference League and found, teams sit back against us and we'll play a back five, and all of a sudden the way you then have to score goals and create chances changes an awful lot. And I think we've seen United play up really well in a lot of big games at times. And look, they've put together probably their best run of form under Amram, all season, kind of, in the past few games, past few weeks. But I think that's a real banana skin for them. I mean, I remember the fixture at Old Trafford last season where they were basically matched up, shape-wise, and Palace came out 2-0 winners and just a much better team. So it's, maybe continuing to be kind of an audition for Glasner as well, of could he be a bigger club manager? Because Palace look really, really good, really solid under him.
They do,
And that's
don't
a Brighton fan saying that. So
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice for the travelling Man United fans to see a 3-4-3 in an operational state. So,
How many of the Man United fans will be travelling?
it's not 1996.
Speaking of games from last season that bring back memories, how about Nottingham Forest Brighton, Liam?
Do you know what? That game, as bad as it looked as a scoreline, was actually
The
a real...
scoreline was 7-0.
It was bad. It looks like a 1. That was a real turning point in Brighton's season, actually. They went on a really good run of form after that and then ended the season really, really well. And that was probably another game where, I don't know if you ever do get a 7-0 game, but actually there were moments in that first half where, Brighton could have equalised and were fairly abject defensively, but, it wasn't completely kind of awful. And it's been that has kind of been the one result that seemed to kind of hang around Fabian Hertzler, who I think it's done a really, really good job. And there was a great piece out on the site this week by Andy Naylor, kind of our Brighton writer, and was kind of saying that maybe should kind of get even more credit than De Zerbi had. That in terms of, he's at 50 Premier League games now, has got more points from those than De Zerbi did. It's a lot more stable. It's a lot less kind of sexy, attractive football all the time. It's not always intense kind of baiting the press. We're going to play through you. We're going to have our central midfielders on the edge of the box. And it's not always as aggressive a press. I think they're one of the best teams, without the ball in the league this season in terms of how they can, be aggressive. But it's a little bit more stable. They've changed the game really well. Keeps bringing on substitutes to score. Did it again with Jack Hinshaw at the weekend. So, that's definitely, I think, probably for him personally, a game that he'll want to have some better memories from. But I think since then they've kicked on and they were really, really good.
Sean Dyche with back-to-back wins in the Premier League. One of the great things that Hutzela's done is get Danny Welbeck in a starting role. He's got 7 goals in 7.
And a real nice range of finishes as well when you look at kind of the goals that he scores. There's a great through ball from Georgie Rutter against Leeds where he chips the keeper. An outstanding cross from Minter, when the ball's kind of dipping. I was at the game and where I was sat was kind of further up from where the TV cameras are. So I couldn't quite appreciate in real time. I could see the quality of the ball going. That's an amazing kind of whipped cross in towards the back post. But kind of only when you see the reverse angle do you see as it's dropping the way he meets it. So he's in the form of his career. He's basically on track, I think, to kind of hit 15, 20 goals the rate he's going at. Obviously, often the big question with him is kind of his fitness and availability, but I think he's playing more regularly than he ever has done, and that must also contribute to being in good scoring form, kind of carrying that through games. But I think he's got real good creativity around him. You look at the midfielders Brighton have. Georgie Rutter as a number 10, is really great at kind of slipping him in behind the defence. Minter gets into the box well, provides good crosses. Diego Gomez tends to be a bit of a threat from the left-hand side as well. So it's quite well set up for him.
All right, it should be a good game, that one. That's another of those 2:05 on the Sunday. Late game on Saturday is Spurs against Fulham. Before that, at 5:30, you got Everton against Newcastle. Again, a very intriguing-looking fixture. Newcastle on the road with all sorts of problems, beaten on Tuesday in Marseille. Everton, Duncan?
This man wrote a very good piece, pointing at Liam, about why Newcastle's away form is much worse than their home form, and it's not just about passion.
Is it not about passion?
It's probably partly about passion.
All right.
I don't think Newcastle, of all clubs or fan bases, are ever going to lack for passion. I think they're going to come out pretty good on that. No, they're always an interesting team at kind of how they defend. People will probably remember them a few years ago as being that ultra aggressive pressing team, that 4-3-3 that was just, any team that turned up at St James's Park felt like they were just going to get Newcastle players just running at them for the whole game. They've been quite passive away from home, and they tend to drop into this 4-5-1 where it's just a completely flat midfield five. And the problem then becomes, as soon as they don't put pressure on the ball or whoever's got possession, that whole midfield can be taken out with one pass. There isn't kind of that Declan Rice or Moises Caicedo figure who sits a bit deeper that as soon as that pass goes into midfield will shuffle left or right or jump in and really break up an attack. And I mean, the midfielders pick up silly kind of yellow cards because often the ball's gone past them. They quickly have to recover and make a foul to stop an attack. All teams just kind of play through them. Villa did it a little bit earlier on in the season. You look at both the goals that Brighton scored in the win at the Amex, came from that kind of, it looks almost like a goal from the 2010s because you go, well, teams have learnt now how to be compact and defend in that midfield block. So it's something that I'm kind of amazed how continues to persist with it. He's been quite honest about their problems in terms of the away form, and it's just something that no one else seems to defend that way. And I think that's why it's almost a bit too hard to sit there and be passive without kind of having players engage the guy with possession.
I remember the 2010s a lot worse than you do. What kind of goal exactly, or what kind of defending are we talking about there?
It's just kind of being a little bit more open, not quite as compact. And you think now, for instance, you think of like Arsenal was a really great example of a team out of possession that, when was the last time you saw a team play a through ball and split Arsenal apart completely? That, one, I think players are a lot more athletic now. So if those passes do happen, they can recover. Or as we're talking about goalkeepers in the current or post Manuel Neuer era that can come out from their goal and sweep up. So I think teams have become a little bit more collective in that and better kind of at that block defending. Forest are probably another great example from last year of teams where you just go, well, you can only get at them kind of round the sides or through crosses. And I just don't see that with Newcastle currently.
We'll see if they fare any better in their trip to the Hill Dickinson.
Really do, yeah. As long as Everton don't start fighting each other, I fancy the Toffees for this one.
Yeah. They're on back-to-back wins and back-to-back clean sheets. Everton. Looking good. They're currently 11th, part of that glut of teams for whom a victory could see them rocket into the top four. Madness, and very exciting. We'll return on Sunday night to round up all the action from Premier League match day 13. But that is it for today's Totally Football Show. So many thanks, Charlie, for being with us.
Thank you.
To Duncan and Liam, Jake and Charlie in the booth, to Jay and Andy, who joined us earlier on, and you, listener. There's no Totally Extra this week, but there are loads of ones in the back catalogue. If you haven't heard our exploration of Roy Hodgson's golden years at Fulham, or the madness that was the Curbs, Tevez, West Ham, the Biscuit Man and all that, and so many other great stories, then go back and have a look. Anyway, have a great weekend, whatever it is you're doing, and we'll speak to you hopefully on Sunday night. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.